luckily for her, she had two parents who gave her this in-depth advice. My dad had taught me to find my light. And my mother told me that in order to advance my career, I needed to think about my skincare. Drink 2 liters of water a day. Use a Clarisonic brush. Apply sunblock. Get facials. So I was set up for success. This is the best your parents can give you? Real sad. Okay, not surprisingly, as soon as she trots back down to Los Angeles, who should be ready there with his checkbook but one Thomas Markle? Financed by her father, she rented a home. She bought a used car, but then of course she turns to daddy and says, you'll pay for the gas, right? Why should he? You're a grown adult, just finished college. Every penny of which he funded. Anyway, that didn't stop him. Of course, he does everything. He even converted the bathroom in her house to a dark room because she wanted to learn photography. So he was over there trying to set her up with this new dream. And for additional income, Meghan takes a series of what I can only describe as high school summer jobs. Okay, this is a woman who just finished college at Northwestern. Why is she relying on daddy to pay her bills? And why are these the things that she's deciding that she's going to get herself a little fun money with? She works as a gift wrapper, a calligrapher for wedding invitations, which we all call BS on that. We've seen it. We don't believe it. And she worked as a hostess at Maribel, a restaurant in West Hollywood. Most of their waiters at Maribel are unemployed actors seeking parts. So she was among friends. But you guys, are those not high school summer jobs? Those are not the jobs of a Northwestern graduate. Why is this I mean, I don't understand running after the pipe dream of becoming an actress, especially when you never showed any outstanding promise. Like you've been slogging for years. Like I feel like if you had been like a child star and you'd gone away to college and come back, that would be one thing, because you'd be like, well, I've got connections. I have significant tape to show at auditions. Like that'd be one thing. But this business of you never made it and then you went and you just spent a gajillion dollars on a super pricey education, very, very, very prestigious. And then you want to come back over here and gift wrap? That's a job for a 15-year-old on a Christmas break or something. Anyway, clutching a portfolio of photos, including the typical revealing ones, Meghan began the tough routine of seeking auditions. Unlike her competitors, she did have those 5 lines on General Hospital. But it was just a long series of rejection without explanation. For the majority of the time, she was running around like a chicken with her head cut off, trying to find work and not finding anything at all. And even Meghan writes that her 20s were brutal. Meghan says, it was a constant battle with myself, judging my weight, my style, my desire to be as cool, as hip, as smart, as whatever as everyone else. I must have been about 24 when a casting director looked at me during an audition and he said, you need to know that you're enough. Less makeup and more Meghan. Now, I doubt that any casting director told her that, only because they don't have time to give you these insightful moments about yourself. But it seems to be a conclusion she'd come to herself, that maybe she was trying too hard. So now she tries, in my estimation. I think that this is a revelation that is perhaps less genuine than it sounds. Because what I think happened at this point, when she realized that doing herself up all the time wasn't going to do it, then I think that she decided to polish another facet of this fake diamond. Let's not be more genuine, but let's learn how to pretend to be more genuine and make other people think that I'm a very sincere person. So I feel like at this point, she kind of began to shift and became a little bit more sophisticated in her presentation. Now I think that there was this desire to become seemingly this super genuine person. And I think that there's this whole act of likability that she had worked on her whole life, but like now she's like really honing in on that specific trait that she would love for people to think that she's, and that's where I think this whole, remember in Spare how she's just constantly hugging everybody? And it's like, girl, like quit draping yourself all over everybody. What a social pariah to constantly be up in people's business. I think that Meghan does all of that hugging because she's trying to like instantly make herself like a friend without having to do any of the work that is involved in becoming people's friends. She just automatically wants like an instant rapport with people so that she can use them. And I think she does that with hugs. And I think it's just this whole part of this whole scheme to become this really genuine, just warm person. It's just a bunch of tricks. Okay, meantime, life isn't going super well for her. She's still driving around in that battered Ford Explorer with, where the doors don't open up, so she's crawling through the back constantly. And, who among us hasn't driven a beater from time to time in our life? But to add insult to injury, not only is she climbing in and out of the back of her car because the doors don't open. Trevor is over here casting for his movies and not casting her. Ouch. But I mean, it doesn't really matter because all of his projects just seem to be crashing and crumbling all around him. Anyway, she didn't really need him because at the same time, she was having her first break. Now, Howie Mandel, who's a comedian and host of a TV show, Deal or No Deal, happened to watch her reels of one-liners and her audition, and he felt that she had the body and the looks for one of his suitcase girls. And so she was hired. She was one of 26 girls who were hired. And you would stand there with a suitcase and these 5-inch stiletto heels squeezed into this tight mini dress. And you'd be carrying this briefcase. And part of the show was you were supposed to, the contestants would pick your briefcase and you'd open it up and reveal how much money was in it. And I don't really know. I never watched the show. But anyway, on the show, she's carrying a suitcase and having to stand there and smile and, carry on and be winsome without really saying anything. Now, half-sister Samantha wants you to know that she thinks that they stuffed Meghan's bra, but that's neither here nor there. Starting at 5:30 a.m. every morning, they would shoot 7 episodes in one day. And each show paid her $800. And between each episode, she would change clothes. And she told Thomas that it was all just so humiliating. I'm so embarrassed, she told her father. But he told her, look, it's exposure. And if you're spotted, you'll get another part. But it's going to take time. You can't just instantaneously get what you want. There's nobody here you can just hug for a job. Well, maybe there is. But anyway, Thomas says that he knew about winning stardom in Hollywood. And Hollywood was going to expect Meghan to do anything. You do anything. And this is a very interesting line. Humiliation was one of the prices of winning fame. So Meghan was not to think that she could just get in without having to grovel for the opportunities. Now, on the set of this show, of course, sexy young women always attract the rich and powerful men among us. And Donald Trump came and visited the set many times. He passed around some invitations to the girls. You guys can come on over and visit my golf courses if you want to. And some of the girls accepted, but Meghan didn't. She didn't accept anything from Trump, but neither did she accept any of the other invitations that came their way. She just never went out after the shows, but she spent a lot of time reading scripts for auditions. She really wanted to have something more than this as far as work is concerned. She wasn't interested in casual dating. She was always looking for commitment. I mean, obviously she's with Trevor. So according to Layla Milani, one of the other girls, Meghan was kind of more serious about her path in life. However, if it came to partying with people that she thought might give her a leg up, somehow the professionalism of going home at night and reading scripts quietly with your glasses and your little cup of tea went out the window. There's a guy named Brett Ratner who's a very successful Hollywood producer, and he would throw these big parties. And at these big parties, there were all kinds of actual famous people, not Meghan famous, but real famous, like Johnny Depp and Leonardo DiCaprio and Penelope Cruz, and all these people would come to these big parties. And all of the game show girls would go to the parties as well. Now, everybody thought they were just a dime a dozen, and there wasn't anything noteworthy about any of them. They all looked exactly the same. Now, some people noticed Meghan because she dressed really conservatively. And she also liked to do this whole act where she was like this doe-eyed innocent. Now, where have we heard her bringing this act back up? But this was something that she began to work on. This was a character she began to play at this time. And yet, she was usually among the last to leave as dawn broke. So, I'm not sure what the doe-eyed innocent was doing at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 in the morning, but somehow she managed to convey the idea that she just had no idea. I just don't have no idea. I'm just this poor little innocent babe in the woods. Okay, so Deal or No Deal ends. What's she gonna do now? Well, she'd lost her coyness. That's one thing that she gave up on, Deal or No Deal. And she had a little photo shoot in Men's Health magazine. There she is in her hot pants making burgers on the grill. Now, she would go on later to say that she had been objectified by the industry. But, Meghan, dear, you're the one that took the job, so were they objectifying you or were you agreeing to it? Meanwhile, during all these episodes of being objectified, Trevor and she are traveling all over the place just to try restaurants. Apparently, they flew to Greece and Mexico and Thailand to visit recommended restaurants. And she really couldn't cover her own costs. But Trevor had a streak of his own luck. And he was earning some money. Now, Meghan, she was doing a little this, little that from time to time. And then suddenly it looked like maybe she was going to get her big break. There was this proposed series called The Apostles. Had nothing to do with the Apostles. Listen to the setup of this show. Meghan was to play a former sex worker rescued by a Christian policeman who falls in love and marries her. So in the series pilot, if we had seen it, we would have seen Meghan playing the part of an experienced young woman who argues with her husband and also provides sex advice to her neighbors. As you can imagine, the pilot was rejected. Can you think of a dumber show? Like, I can't even imagine being like, ooh, I gotta get my popcorn to make sure I don't miss the Apostles. Can't wait to see what kind of a sex advice this former sex worker is gonna give her Christian policemen and, all of their suburban neighbors. Like, that sounds like what the hell kind of show is that? Good job, Fox Studios, for rejecting that. But the fact that it even made it to pilot is shocking. Okay, but anyway, it doesn't get any better than that. So then, then she's featured in a pilot for a show called Good Behavior. And in this lighthearted series, we follow a Las Vegas crime family trying to become honest. Well, where does it go? Where does the show go with that? What do you do with that? That doesn't sound interesting. I don't want to watch former criminals trying to be honest. I want to watch honest people trying to be criminals. Anyway, then she has a cameo appearance snorting cocaine in The Boys and Girls Guide to Getting Down. A cameo appearance? How can you play yourself when no one knows you? Anyway, and then she appears in this movie called Get Him to the Greek. But she didn't even have any lines, so it's not like anybody really noticed she was there. And then she finally had a brief appearance in the sci-fi movie called Fringe, but her part was edited right out. And some people, that would just break their hearts, but not Meghan. This just fanned the flames of her ambition. If they didn't want her, they just didn't understand her. She just continued to slog and struggle. It just feels like it's never going to happen for her. Now, at this time, she had a blog, an anonymous blog, called Working Actress, where she sort of chronicled what it was to be a struggling, unknown actress in Hollywood. And she writes, I'm not going to lie. I've spent many days curled up in bed with a loaf of bread and some wine, a one-woman pity party. It's awful and ridiculous. Is there any pity party that ever extends beyond one person? Anyway, she also says that she'd had to freeze her acting union membership. I've had to borrow money, work jobs I hated, endured being treated like shit on set, kiss actors with smelly breath, and cry for hours on end because I just didn't think I was going to make it. And I just didn't think I could take it anymore. Well, then do something else. You have a legitimate college education. But really, Meghan's real problem wasn't the fact that there weren't parts available. It wasn't the fact that she was mixed race, which we'll get to. She likes to say that that was part of the reason. Part of the reason was that she just didn't have any star quality. I mean, the thing that's really critical to an actress being noticed is she has to be noticeable. And Meghan lacked charisma. She just didn't generate any magic. There just wasn't anything about any of her performances that were memorable to anybody. She was attractive. Nobody would have argued that she was attractive, but they just didn't find her very exciting. They just thought she sort of had a very ordinary way about her. And like we've said before, she portrayed, this is an interesting quote. She says, he writes, like the vast majority of wannabes, Meghan portrayed her own wants and needs and not the requirements of the role. She was her own person. She was not convincingly becoming another person. She never played a part which she could adapt to herself. Lacking natural mystery, she remained a B actress struggling with one-liners that might end up on the cutting room floor. So, because of her inability to transform to somebody else, and because her own personality wasn't anything that anyone should write home about, it was just very easy to forget you'd ever seen her. But she was constantly looking for reasons why she was rejected. And she writes that I wasn't black enough for the black roles, and I wasn't white enough for the white roles, leaving me somewhere in the middle as the ethnic chameleon who couldn't book a job. What are you talking about? No one even knew you were black. She says that in an article for Elle in 2015, every week someone in her life would ask her where she came from, and people were always struggling to place her identity. But the thing is, rather than accept that she was just not an outstanding actress, she wanted everyone to believe that she was being maligned, mistreated, and cast out because she was too light for the black community and too mixed for the white community. This is such a line she's heard from somewhere, because what point in her life did people not assume that she was white? I just don't understand what she's talking about. Thomas, to the rescue, comes in to let us know that race was never an issue throughout Meghan's childhood. And he says that it was never an issue during her years in Hollywood either. He says he was surprised when she even brought it up. I mean, with the exception of that time where she didn't know what box to tick, and the time that there was a driver who shouted racist abuse at Meghan, to her father's understanding, nothing about her race had ever come up. And he also insists that she just was never the underdog that she loved to portray herself as. She wasn't swimming against the current. Similarly, Meghan never blamed racism at the time for her rejections. Everyone's being rejected in Hollywood. Hardly anybody's able to get a job and to work consistently. So it's not like she was somehow cast out when everyone else was being accepted. It's just the norm. Everyone is struggling. The tide is about to shift for Meghan. In mid-2010, this guy, Nick Collins, her agent, sent Meghan for an audition in an office block in Santa Monica in Los Angeles. These American producers were looking for an attractive young woman to play the part of Rachel Zane, who is an aspiring lawyer, but who is not able to pass the exams. Truly this part sounds like it was written for Meghan. It was a low-budget soap series. Let us not forget. Do we recall how King Charles, upon meeting Meghan, was asking her about how she, wasn't she on a soap in America? And she was like, no, it's a cable series that airs at night. Like there was some big, difference there. It's not. And anyway, in this show, Rachel Zane is supposed to have an affair with Mike Ross, who's this brilliant young man with a photographic memory. And this book here goes on to give us a little background about what the show Suits was. But basically, it's just a bunch of lawyers doing shady things and pretending they aren't being shady at all. So life. And then, we don't need to go into what the show was about. But I will note that the character of Rachel Zane wasn't necessarily very robust in the creator's mind. What they did want was somebody who was intelligent, likable, kind of worldly wise, sexy, who could play the character of trustworthy and loyal. And Meghan went in for the audition and actually didn't think she did very well. She thought she kind of really blew it. But come to find out, they were all blown away by the performance. The first and only time anyone was ever blown away by Meghan's performance. And I think, quite frankly, the guy who developed the show, I think he must have just found her personally attractive, because I can't imagine that anything she did was all that shocking. Aaron Korish, he's the guy that wrote Suits, and he says, "We all looked at each other. Wow, this is the one." And he says that he thinks it's because Meghan had the ability to be smart and sharp without losing her sweetness. Boy, she played them hard, didn't she? And all the producers agreed. But this is also very interesting to note. He says he didn't even know that she was biracial. They did want to have a diversity in the cast, but they didn't cast her because they thought she was diverse. They just thought she was the best choice. And again, this sort of blows up Meghan's complaint that her career was stymied because of her color, because no one even knew what her color was, nor did they care. So as it turned out, they thought that they were going to shoot this. They shot the pilot. It was picked up by USA and commissioned for 12 episodes. She was going to make $50,000 per episode. And that was going to end up at $600,000 after 9 months of work. So finally, she's earning her own way in the world. But to the shock and horror of everyone, they weren't going to film this show in New York the way they had all thought they were going to. No, they've got to save money. This is a low-budget cable show after all. And that meant that everyone was going to have to shuttle on over to Toronto, where they were going to set up shop and film there. Everybody else decided that they would be commuting from Los Angeles. They're not making Toronto their home. But not Meghan. She sees this as her ticket out of her relationship with Trevor. Leaving Los Angeles and Trevor, Meghan told the producers, was not a downside to her. She planned on making her home in Toronto. Commute, hardly. Canada, here she comes. She did not explain why she wanted to leave Los Angeles, but one friend speculated that she had agreed that Trevor was just super cheesy. And she felt that, quote, "He's like a guy who wears those Adidas slippers with a suit to a fancy event." And another friend suggested that while Meghan could commit herself to Trevor, she did not like being possessed by him. She wanted to be in total control. So, if necessary, Suits was her get-out-of-card from that relationship.